The stars had always been cold and silent, but tonight they felt different to Admiral Park Ji-woo. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Iron Promise, watching the endless darkness through the observation window. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. The distress signal had come 3 hours ago from New Bizen, a farming colony on the edge of human space. 50,000 people lived there. Families, children, farmers who wanted nothing more than to grow rice under an alien sun. Now their emergency beacons screamed across the void, and no one was answering their calls. "Admiral, we are dropping out of faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds, said her navigation officer. Ji-woo nodded. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and scars on her hands from battles she rarely spoke about. 20 years ago, she had fought in the Void Incursion, when dark creatures from between galaxies had threatened to consume everything. Humanity had saved the Galactic Council then. The 12 ancient alien races had welcomed humans as heroes. That felt like a lifetime ago. The ship shuddered as it returned to normal space. What Ji-woo saw made her heart stop. New Bizen was burning. The planet hung in space like a wounded animal. Great fires spread across its surface, visible even from orbit. Debris floated everywhere, pieces of buildings, broken ships, and things Ji-woo did not want to look at too closely. The colony's defense stations were shattered. Its small fleet of protection vessels had been torn apart. Survivors? Ji-woo asked, her voice calm even as her hands shook. Scanning now, Admiral. The officer paused. I am detecting approximately 3,000 life signs. They are hiding in the underground shelters. 3,000 out of 50,000. Get rescue teams down there immediately, Ji-woo ordered. And tell me who did this. The answer came quickly, and it made no sense. Admiral, the weapons signatures, they match Council military vessels. Specifically, they match the 7th Fleet of the Corvani Empire. The Corvani were one of the 12 elder races. They had been humanity's allies for 50 years. Their ambassador had attended Ji-woo's promotion ceremony and given her a gift, a crystal flower that still sat on her desk. That is impossible, Ji-woo said. Check again. I have checked 5 times, Admiral. There is no mistake. Ji-woo stared at the burning world below. The Corvani had done this. But why? What possible reason could they have to attack a peaceful farming colony? She did not know it yet, but the answer would change everything. Far across the galaxy. On the great station where the Galactic Council met, Counselor Kim Do-yoon was asking similar questions. Do-yoon was 60 years old, a former professor of alien cultures who had become humanity's voice among the stars. He was a small man with kind eyes and a gentle manner that made others underestimate him. This was a mistake. Behind his soft appearance was a mind sharp enough to cut steel. For months, Do-yoon had noticed strange things. Council sessions that ended early. Votes that happened without proper notice. Senior counselors who avoided his eyes when they passed in the hallways. He had tried to access the official records, but entire meetings had been erased from the archives. Tonight, he sat in his private office with Intelligence Officer Lee Soo-jin, a woman half his age with short hair and cold eyes. She had spent 10 years spying on humanity's enemies. Now she was helping Do-yoon spy on humanity's friends. I found it, Soo-jin said, sliding a data tablet across the desk. It took me 3 weeks to break their encryption, but I found it. Do-yoon picked up the tablet. As he read, his face went pale. The document was called the Silent Accord. It was a treaty between the Galactic Council and something called the Vorn Dominion. Do-yoon had never heard of the Vorn before, but the treaty explained everything. The Vorn were a parasitic species from beyond the galactic rim. They had consumed their own galaxy, and now they wanted this one. Their biology required living hosts, intelligent beings whose bodies and minds they could take over and use. They needed billions of hosts to survive. The Galactic Council, the 12 ancient races that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years, had made a deal with them not in exchange for being spared. The Council had agreed to hand over all lesser races to the Vorn. This included the Talic, the Morin, the Vale, and dozens of other species the Council considered. Unimportant. It also included humanity. 800 billion human beings lived across 47 worlds, families, children, farmers and teachers and artists and soldiers. The Council had agreed to give them all to the Vorn as hosts. The attacks on our colonies, Doyun whispered. The pirate raids that never made sense. The disasters that came too often. All planned, Sujin confirmed. The Council has been weakening us for 2 years, destroying our defenses, killing our people slowly so we would not notice the pattern. They are preparing us for harvest. Doyun felt sick. 50 years ago, humanity had saved the Council from the Void incursion. They had bled and died to protect species that had existed for millions of years. And this was their reward. This was their thanks. Betrayal. We need to warn Earth, Doyun said. We need to warn everyone. If we try to send a message, they will detect it, Sujin replied. They are watching all our communications. We need to leave the station and deliver this information in person. Doyun nodded. He stood up and looked around his office one last time. The paintings on the walls, the books on the shelves, the crystal flower the Corvani ambassador had given him, now revealed as a gift from a liar. He picked up the flower and crushed it in his hand. Then we leave tonight, he said. And may the stars forgive them for what they have done, because humanity never will. In the darkness between galaxies, the Vorn Dominion waited. Their great fleet drifted in the void like sleeping monsters, millions of organic ships grown from flesh and metal. Inside each ship, Vorn creatures dreamed of the hosts they would soon claim. They had been patient for so long. Their old galaxy was dead, consumed by entropy and time. They had wandered for centuries, searching for new life to continue their existence. And now the Galactic Council, those ancient and foolish creatures, had offered them a gift beyond imagination, a galaxy full of hosts. Billions of minds to consume, billions of bodies to wear. The first voice, leader of the Vorn, stirred in its chamber of living tissue. It could feel the preparations being made. Soon the harvest would begin. Soon the Vorn would feed, but the first voice had learned something interesting about one of the species marked for harvest. The humans. Such young creatures, barely a blink in cosmic time. Yet they had done something the elder races could not. They had defeated the Void incursion. Perhaps, the first voice thought, these humans would provide some entertainment before the end. It did not know how right it was. Across the galaxy, Admiral Park Ji-woo held a dying child in her arms. The girl had been pulled from the ruins of New Bizan, burned and broken. She lived just long enough to ask one question. Why did they hurt us? Ji-woo had no answer. She held the child until she stopped breathing, then gently closed her eyes. Around her, rescue workers pulled more bodies from the rubble. 3,000 survivors out of 50,000. The rest were dead. Ji-woo stood up. Her uniform was covered in ash and blood. Her eyes were dry. She had passed beyond tears into something harder and colder. Captain, she said to her second-in-command, set course for Earth, maximum speed. Yes, Admiral. What should I tell command? Ji-woo looked at the burning world one last time. Tell them the Council has betrayed us. Tell them war is coming. And tell them that when it does, we will not lose. The Iron Promise turned toward home, carrying evidence of betrayal and the promise of revenge. Behind it, New Bizan continued to burn. A wound that would never fully heal. The galaxy would soon learn what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The news spread across. Earth like fire through dry grass. President Beak. Una stood before the United Terran Congress, her face displayed on every screen in every city on every human world. She was 65 years old, with white hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen too much suffering. Behind her, the evidence played on massive holographic displays, the silent accord, the weapon signatures, the dying words of survivors. Our allies have sold us, Una said, her voice steady. The species we saved, the council we trusted, has made a deal to give our children to monsters. 800 billion human beings marked for harvest. This is not rumor. This is not speculation. This is the truth. She paused. The Congress was silent. Billions of people watched and waited. I could have hidden this from you, Una continued. I could have prepared in secret and hoped you would never learn what was coming. But you deserve better. You are not cattle to be protected and pacified. You are human beings, and human beings face their enemies with open eyes. In living rooms and factories, in schools and hospitals, people listened. Una expected panic. She expected fear. She had prepared speeches to calm terrified citizens. She never needed them. What rose instead was something older and fiercer. It came from deep in human bone. From a million years of surviving predators and ice ages and disasters that should have ended their species forever. It was not panic. It was rage. Within hours, military recruitment centers were overwhelmed. Lines stretched around blocks as young men and women waited to sign their names. Factories that made civilian goods began switching to military production without being asked. Scientists who had been working on comfortable research projects sent messages offering their skills for weapons development. Earth was awakening. And it was angry. Admiral Park Ji-woo arrived home to find a planet transformed. She had expected to spend weeks convincing politicians of the danger. Instead, she found President Una waiting for her with a promotion. Fleet Marshal, Una said, handing Ji-woo the insignia. You command all of humanity's military forces now. Build me a fleet that can break the Council and the Vorn both. Ji-woo accepted the insignia. How long do I have? The intelligence suggests the Vorn Harvest Fleet launches in 18 months. You have 12 to be ready. It was an impossible task. Ji-woo smiled grimly and got to work. Meanwhile, far from Earth, Counselor Kim Do-yeon and Intelligence Officer Lee Soo-jin were running for their lives. They had escaped the Council station in a stolen shuttle, but the Council knew they were gone. Warships hunted them through the stars. Bounty hunters searched every port. Their faces were displayed on wanted posters across Council space. Labeled as terrorists and traitors, they found help from an unexpected source. Captain Yoon Hana had been a diplomat once, assigned to the Council station as part of humanity's official delegation. When the betrayal was revealed, she had been marked for arrest along with every other human on the station. She escaped with nothing but her sidearm and her rage. Now she captained a stolen freighter called the Broken Promise, crewed by humans who had fled Council space. When Do-yeon's distress signal reached her, she came without hesitation. Counselor, Hana said as Do-yeon and Soo-jin came aboard. You look terrible. I have had a difficult month, Do-yeon replied. Hana was 38, with a scar across her left cheek from a knife fight on a station where no help was coming. Her diplomatic training was useful, but what kept her crew alive was something harder, the willingness to do whatever survival required. Where do we go now? Soo-jin asked. Do-yeon had been thinking about this since they escaped. The Council had 12 species. If humanity stood alone, they would die. But humanity was not the only species the Council had betrayed. We go to the outer reaches, he said. We find the other condemned species. The Talic, the Morin, the Vale. They are all scheduled for harvest too. Perhaps they would like to do something about that. The journey took 3 months. They traveled through dangerous space, hiding from patrols, trading favors for fuel and food. They were nearly killed once by Council warships, once by pirates who did not realize who they were attacking. Hannah handled the pirates. She did not discuss the details. Finally, they reached the Talic homeworld. The Talic were an insectoid species, traders and merchants who had built their civilization on commerce. They stood 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in colors humans could not imagine. They were not warriors. They were business people, and they were terrified. The Talic Council of Trade met with Do-Yoon in a chamber filled with the sweet smell of their native flowers. Their speaker, an elderly Talic named Scree, listened to everything Do-Yoon said. "We know," Scree replied when he finished. "We have known for some time. But what can we do? We are merchants, not soldiers. The Council has always protected us. Without them, we are helpless." "No one is helpless," Do-Yoon said. "The Council did not protect you. They sold you. They looked at your children and saw nothing but products to be traded. But humanity sees allies, partners, friends who face the darkness together." Scree's compound eyes shifted colors, an expression of deep thought. "And what does humanity want in return?" "Your ships," Do-Yoon said. "Your factories. Your trade networks. We will provide the weapons and the soldiers. You provide the logistics. Together, we survive." The Talic debated for 3 days. In the end, they agreed. From the Talic, Do-Yoon traveled to the more in silicon-based beings who lived on volcanic worlds and built machines of incredible complexity. They agreed to provide engineering support. Then to the Vale, aquatic telepaths whose psychic abilities could coordinate fleets across vast distances. They agreed to serve as communication officers. One by one, the condemned species joined together. They called themselves the Unbroken Compact, a promise that they would not be broken, no matter what came. Back in human space, Commander Kong Mino was already fighting. Mino was 40 years old, a tactical genius who had been stationed on the border when the war began. He commanded 3 destroyers and 2 frigates, a tiny force compared to the Council's armadas. But Minho did not fight like other commanders. He fought like a ghost. His ships would appear from behind asteroids or inside nebulae, strike Council supply lines with devastating precision, then vanish before retaliation arrived. He destroyed fuel depots, communication relays, and transport convoys. He rescued human refugees from occupied worlds. He sent Council admirals into fits of frustrated rage. The galaxy began calling his fleet the Ghost Wing. You cannot defeat the Council with 5 ships. His second officer told him one night, "I am not trying to defeat them," Minho replied. "I am trying to delay them. Every supply convoy I destroy is weapons that do not reach the front. Every communication relay I burn is orders that arrive late. Every day I give our people is another day to build, to train, to prepare." He looked out at the stars, where his small fleet hid in the shadow of a dead moon. "When the real fleet comes," he said, "I want the Council to be tired, confused, and afraid. I want them to know that humans do not surrender. I want them to understand that this war will cost them everything." His officer nodded slowly. "And what about the Vorn?" Minho's eyes grew cold. "The Vorn think they are going to harvest us. They think we are prey. When the time comes, I will teach them what happens when prey fights back." The months passed. Earth's factories produced ships at impossible rates. The Talic provided supplies. The Morin built weapons. The Veil coordinated everything with their psychic networks. Commander Minho's ghost wing struck again and again, keeping the Council off balance. And slowly, impossibly, hope began to grow. In a shipyard orbiting Mars. The skeleton of a massive vessel took shape. It was 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that did not officially exist. Engineers called it Project Thunder. Its official designation was the HFY Dreadnought, named after the mythical beast that protected humanity from disaster. Fleet Marshal Park Ji-woo visited the shipyard and looked at her future flagship. Workers welded and bolted around the clock. The ship's core hummed with energy that could light a small moon. "How many more of these are we building?" she asked the project director. 12, Fleet Marshal. "They will be ready in 6 months." Ji-woo nodded. 12 dreadnoughts. 3,000 standard warships. Countless fighters and bombers. An alliance of 5 species united by betrayal and determination. It still might not be enough. But it was more than anyone had expected. She touched the cold metal of the dreadnought's hull and made a silent promise to the dead of New Bizan. To every human who had been sacrificed in the Council's schemes, "We are coming. And we will not stop until justice is done." The galaxy had no idea what was about to hit it. 1 year had passed since the betrayal was revealed, and the galaxy was no longer the same. The Unbroken Compact had grown from a desperate alliance into a true military force. 10,000 warships from 5 species gathered in human space, hiding in the shadows of gas giants and the darkness between stars. Talic freighters carried supplies. Morin engineers maintained engines and weapons. Veil telepaths linked commanders across light years. And humans brought the fire. Fleet Marshal Park Ji-woo stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Sovereign Dawn. It was the first of the HFY dreadnoughts, 3 kilometers of armor and weapons that could crack a moon in half. 11 more like it waited nearby, their hulls gleaming with fresh paint and deadly purpose. Her second in command, Vice Admiral Cho Sun-woo, handed her a datapad. He was 10 years younger than her, with a soldier's face and a strategist's mind. He had helped design the Haiti-class weapon systems and knew their capabilities better than anyone. "The fleet is ready," Sun-woo said. 10,312 ships from 5 species. 47 million soldiers, pilots, and crew. The largest armada in galactic history. Ji-woo looked at the numbers. It was impressive. It was also not enough. Not against the combined might of the Galactic Council and the Vorn Dominion. But wars were not won only by numbers. They were won by will. "What about the Ghost Wing?" she asked. "Commander Kong Minho reports in regularly. His scouts have located the Vorn Forward Staging Base, a massive station hidden in the Crimson Nebula near the galactic core. Intelligence estimates 3,000 Vorn vessels are gathering there. The Harvest Fleet launches in 60 days. 60 days? 2 months to decide the fate of billions." Ji-woo had spent the past year preparing for this moment. Every night, she studied battle formations from human history Trafalgar. Midway, the Mars defense during the Void incursion. Every morning, she trained with her officers, drilling them until tactics became instinct. She had done everything possible. Now, it was time to do the impossible. Across human space, President Beat Yuna prepared a different kind of weapon. She sat in a broadcast studio, makeup artists fussing over her hair while technicians calibrated cameras. In 15 minutes, her message would be transmitted to every world in the galaxy, not just human worlds, but council worlds too. Every species would hear what she had to say. Some of her advisors had warned against this. The council would try to block the transmission. They would call it propaganda. They would deny everything. Yuna did not care. Truth had its own power. The broadcast began. My name is Beek Yuna, President of United Earth. I am speaking to every sentient being in this galaxy, friend and enemy alike. What I am about to show you cannot be denied, cannot be explained away, cannot be ignored. On screens across 1,000 worlds, the evidence appeared. The silent accord displayed in full. Recordings of council meetings where genocide was discussed like a business transaction. Testimony from survivors of human colonies, describing the horrors they had witnessed. Weapon signatures that proved council forces had participated in the attacks. The Galactic Council, your leaders. Your protectors, the species you trusted for 10,000 years, has made a deal to give you to monsters, Yuna continued. Not just humanity. The Talek, the Morin, the Vale. Dozens of other species labeled as lesser, as acceptable losses, as products to be sold. She leaned forward, her eyes burning into the camera. But we are not products. We are not cattle. We are people with dreams and families and futures we refuse to surrender. Humanity stands with everyone the Council has condemned. We are the Unbroken Compact, and we will fight for every soul in this galaxy, including the souls of those species whose leaders betrayed them. The broadcast ended. For a moment, there was silence across the stars. Then the chaos began. On Corvani Prime, citizens took to the streets demanding answers. Their government had participated in the betrayal, and now the whole galaxy knew. Politicians fled their offices. Military units refused orders. Within a week, the Corvani government had collapsed into civil war. Similar scenes played out across council space. The Dramari, a peaceful species of philosophers, publicly renounced their council membership. The Ilmari, ancient beings of crystalline light, announced they were defecting to the Unbroken Compact. They would not be complicit in genocide. Not every species turned against the council. Some believed the lies. Others were too afraid to fight. But the council's unity was shattered. When they tried to gather their fleets, they found ships refusing to move, crews demanding explanations, admirals openly questioning orders. The betrayers were tasting their own medicine. Deep behind enemy lines, Commander Kong Minho prepared for the most important mission of his life. His ghost, Wing, had grown from 5 ships to 50 volunteers who had found his fleet and asked to join the fight. They were not enough to challenge the Vorn staging base directly. But they did not need to. They just needed to find its weakness. Minho's intelligence officer was Lee Sujin, who had been smuggled to his fleet after helping Counselor Kim Do-yoon establish the compact. She sat in the Ghost Wing's command center, screens flickering with intercepted Vorn transmissions. I have cracked their primary communication codes, she said. The Vorn are confident. They believe their station is invulnerable. They have 3,000 ships defending it, plus the station's own weapons. But she pulled up a schematic. The station has one weakness. A power core that supplies energy to their shield generators. If we can destroy it, the shields fall. Minho studied the schematic. The core was buried deep inside the station, protected by layers of organic armor and defensive systems. A conventional attack would never reach it. We need someone inside, he said. Exactly. A ground assault team to penetrate the station, while the fleet attacks from outside. Minho thought of Captain Yoon Hana, who had joined the fleet 2 months ago with her crew of former diplomats and refugees. She had fought her way through a dozen battles since then, learning warfare the hard way. She was tough, smart, and willing to do what others could not. Get me Hannah, he said. I have a suicide mission for her. Hannah took the job without hesitation. While the commanders planned, a young pilot named Shin Yoonji prepared for her first real battle. She was 23 years old, fresh from the academy, assigned to a fighter squadron aboard the dreadnought Heaven's Fury. She had joined the military because of New Bizen, her grandmother, had lived there. Her grandmother was now dead, one of 47,000 people who would never come home. Yunji sat in the pilot's ready room, studying the briefing materials for the 100th time. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula. The assault on the Vorn staging base. The fight that would determine whether humanity lived or died got an older pilot sat down beside her. He was 30, with tired eyes and a quiet voice. His name was Seo Taeyun, and he had flown in the Void incursion 20 years ago. First battle? He asked. Yunji nodded. Scared? Terrified. Taeyun smiled sadly. Good. Only fools are not afraid. But here is what they do not teach you in the academy. Fear does not matter. When the shooting starts, you will act. Your training will take over. You will do your job, or you will die trying. That is all there is. Yunji swallowed. How many battles have you survived? 17. He paused. I have lost count of how many friends I have buried. But I keep flying because someone has to. Someone has to stand between the darkness and everyone we love. He stood up and offered his hand. Yunji shook it. Welcome to the fleet, Ensign Shin. See you on the other side. 3 days before the assault, Fleet Marshal Park Ji-woo gathered her commanders for a final briefing. The holographic display showed the Crimson Nebula, a vast cloud of red gas hiding the Vorn staging base. 3,000 enemy ships waited inside. Beyond them, the massive station that would launch the Harvest Fleet. Our attack will come in 3 waves, Ji-woo explained. The main force, under my command, will assault the station directly. Vice Admiral Cho Sun-woo will hold the perimeter with the dreadnoughts to prevent Council reinforcements from interfering. Commander Kong Min-ho's Ghost Wing will approach from behind the asteroid field here and strike their flank. She looked at Captain Yoon Hana. Once Min-ho creates an opening in their defenses, Captain Hana will lead a ground assault into the station itself. Her objective is the power core. When the shields fall, we finish this. Hana nodded grimly. Understood, Fleet Marshal. Ji-woo looked around the room at faces from 5 different species. Humans, Talik, Morin, Vale, Ilmari. All of them had been condemned to death by the Galactic Council. All of them had chosen to fight instead. The odds are against us, she said. They have more ships, more experience, more resources. But we have something they do not. We have each other. We have the fire that comes from knowing we fight for survival, for justice, for everyone who is betrayed by those they trusted. She raised her fist. For the compact. For the fallen. For tomorrow. Every being in the room echoed the words. 24 hours later, the fleet jumped to the Crimson Nebula. The largest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The Crimson Nebula burned with the light of 10,000 weapons. Fleet Marshal Park Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Dawn, watching the battle unfold on screens that flickered with death. The Vorn staging base hung in the center of the nebula like a monstrous tumor, a station grown from flesh and metal, pulsing with dark energy. Around it, 3,000 Vorn ships moved like predators circling prey. All ships begin attack, Ji-woo ordered. The compact fleet surged forward. Human dreadnoughts led the charge, their massive cannons spitting fire across the void. Talik cruisers released swarms of drones that tore into Vorn formations. Morin engineering ships projected shields that absorbed enemy fire. Ilmari vessels glowed with crystalline light as they coordinated the assault. The Vorn responded with terrible fury. Their ships were nightmares, made real organic vessels grown from living tissue. Their hulls writhing with tentacles and mouths and things that had no names. They did not fight like normal ships. They healed from damage that would destroy metal vessels. They launched swarms of parasitic pods that latched onto compact ships and bored through their armor, releasing Vorn soldiers to kill everyone inside. Within minutes, The battle became chaos. "We are losing ships too fast," Vice Admiral Cho Sun-woo reported from his position at the perimeter. His dreadnought, Thunder's Voice, was holding the line against Council reinforcements trying to join the battle. "Vorn regeneration is even faster than we expected. Hold the line," Ji-woo ordered. "Commander Minho, what is your status?" Kang Minho's voice crackled through the communication system. His ghost wing was approaching from behind an asteroid field, hidden from Vorn sensors. "We are in position, beginning our attack now." 50 ships of the ghost wing erupted from the asteroids like vengeful spirits. They struck the Vorn flank with devastating precision, targeting command vessels and communication relays. The Vorn formation shuddered, confused by the sudden assault from an unexpected direction. "That's our opening," Ji-woo said. "Hana, you are clear." Captain Yoon Hana watched the battle from the troop carrier that held her ground assault team. 200 soldiers from 5 species crammed into a ship designed for half that number. They were all volunteers. They all knew most of them would not come back. "Take us in," Hana ordered. The carrier dove through the chaos of battle, dodging weapons, fire, and debris, heading straight for the Vorn station. Parasitic pods reached for them. Point defense guns shot them down. A Vorn destroyer turned to intercept. A human cruiser rammed it from the side, sacrificing itself to clear the path. They reached the station's docking bay. "Everyone out," Hana shouted. "Move, move, move." The assault team poured into the station and immediately found themselves in a nightmare. The interior was not a normal structure. It was alive. Walls pulsed with veins. Floors squished underfoot. The air smelled of blood and something worse. And the Vorn were waiting. They came from everywhere. Creatures of chitin and shadow, their bodies designed for killing. Some had claws. Some had tentacles. Some had weapons fused into their flesh. They screamed in voices that hurt to hear. Hana's team fought through them. She fired her rifle until it overheated, then used it as a club. A Talic soldier beside her fell, his chest torn open. A Moran warrior stepped forward, its silicon body impervious to Vorn claws, crushing enemies with its massive arms. A veiled telepath projected pain directly into Vorn minds, making them hesitate long enough to be killed. Step by bloody step, they pushed toward the power core. Outside, the battle continued to rage. Ensign Shin Yunji flew her fighter through a hell of fire and death. Her squadron had started with 12 ships. Now there were 4. Her flight instructor, Seo Taeyan, had died 15 minutes ago, his ship torn apart by a Vorn living torpedo. Yunji did not have time to grieve. She had a job to do. "Yunji, watch your 6. Her wingmen shouted. She rolled her fighter as a Vorn parasite pod screamed past, close enough to scratch her canopy. She reversed direction and destroyed it with her forward guns. Around her, the battle raged on explosions lighting the nebula. Ships dying by the dozen, the screams of the wounded filling every communication channel. Then she saw it. The Vorn station's shield generator was mounted on the exterior, protected by a barrier of defensive fire. Captain Hana's ground team was still fighting toward the power core, but they were taking too long. The compact fleet was dying. Someone needed to do something now. Yunji made her choice. "All remaining squadron ships, follow me," she ordered. "We are taking out that shield generator." Her wingman's voice was grim. "Yunji, that is a suicide run. I know." 3 fighters followed her toward the generator. Defensive fire lashed out, destroying 1 ship immediately. Another took damage and spun away, trailing smoke. Only Yunji and 1 wingman remained. The generator loomed ahead, pulsing with energy. "I am out of missiles," her wingman reported. "I cannot make the shot." Yunji looked at her own weapons display. 2 missiles left. Not enough to guarantee a hit, but there was another way. Break off, she told her wingman. I am going in. Yunji, no. She cut the communication. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her heart was calm. She thought of her grandmother, dead on New Bison. She thought of the billions of humans, Antalic and Morin and Vale, who would die if the Vorn were not stopped. She aimed her fighter at the shield generator dot at the last second. She fired both missiles and hit her ejection lever. The canopy blew off. Her seat rocketed away from the fighter. Behind her, her ship slammed into the generator, combining with the missiles in an explosion that tore through metal and flesh. The shield generator died. Inside the station, Captain Hana felt the explosion through the living walls. Her tactical display showed the station's shields failing, flickering, dying. The shields are down. She shouted to her remaining soldiers, less than 50 now. Everyone, push forward. The power core is just ahead. They broke through the final defensive line and found themselves in the heart of the station. The power core was a massive thing of pulsing organic machinery, fed by tubes that stretched in every direction. Standing before it was a creature unlike any Hana had seen, tall and thin, wrapped in robes of living tissue, its face hidden beneath a mask of bone. You are the first voice, Hana said, raising her weapon. I am, the creature replied. Its voice was like wind through dead trees. And you are too late. The harvest fleet launches in hours. Even if you destroy this station, my people will consume yours. Then tell me why, Hana demanded. Why do this? Why destroy billions of lives? The first voice was silent for a moment. Then it spoke again, and its voice held something unexpected sadness. We are dying, it said. Our original galaxy was consumed by entropy. Our people wandered the void for centuries, searching for a way to survive. We need hosts to continue our existence. Without them, we are nothing. So you just take them? Murder billions of people because you are afraid to die? The Council offered you to us. They came to us, not the other way around. They wanted our technology, our weapons. They were willing to trade your lives for their own safety. The first voice tilted its head. We are monsters, yes. But we are honest monsters. Can your precious council say the same? Hannah stared at the creature. Her finger hovered over the trigger, and then she lowered her weapon. I am going to broadcast this, she said. Everything you just told me. The whole galaxy will hear that the council came to you, that you were offered innocent lives as payment. Why would you do this? Because the truth matters. Because your people should know what your leaders have done in your name. Because maybe, just maybe, there is another way. She activated her communication device and broadcast everything. Across the galaxy, on compact ships and council vessels, and the screens of 100 species, the first voice's confession played out. In orbit, the Vorn fleet hesitated. Their formation wavered. Fleet, Marshal Ji Woo, saw her opportunity. All ships concentrate fire on the Vorn flagship. Do not let them recover. The Sovereign Dawn led the charge. Its massive cannons fired in sequence, joined by every ship in the compact fleet. The Vorn flagship, a massive organic beast that had destroyed dozens of compact vessels, shuddered under the assault. Tried to flee. It was too slow. The flagship exploded, sending shockwaves through the nebula. Without their command ship, the Vorn fleet fell into confusion. Some ships continued fighting. Others stopped, waiting for orders that never came. And on the perimeter, Vice Admiral Cho, Sun Wu finally saw what he had been waiting for. The Council reinforcement fleet arrived, 3,000 ships from 6 different species, led by Corvani dreadnoughts. They emerged from faster-than-light travel with weapons charged, ready to crush the compact. Sunwoo opened a communication channel. Attention Council Fleet. This is Vice Admiral Cho Sunwoo of the Unbroken Compact. You have just heard the confession of the Vorn First Voice. Your leader sold you and us both. The question is simple. Will you fight for the ones who betrayed you, or will you stand with those who refused to surrender? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Corvani flagship turned its weapons away from the Compact and aimed at the other Council ships. "This is Admiral Knox of the Corvani Third Fleet," a voice said. "We stand with the Compact." Repeat, "We stand with the Compact." More ships followed. Then more. The Council fleet collapsed into chaos as crews chose sides, some fighting for the old order, others joining the revolution. The tide had turned. Ji Woo watched her tactical display as enemy symbols turned friendly. As the impossible became possible, as victory began to take shape. "All ships," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tears running down her face. "Finish the station. End this war." The Compact fleet opened fire. The Vorn station shuddered, cracked, and finally exploded in a ball of fire visible across half the nebula. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula was over. Humanity had won. The war did not end with one battle, but the Battle of the Crimson Nebula broke the spine of the old order forever. In the months that followed, Compact forces swept across the galaxy like a cleansing fire. Council strongholds fell one by one. Some species surrendered immediately, their governments collapsing under the weight of their crimes. Others fought to the bitter end. Led by fanatics who preferred death to justice. Fleet Marshal Park Ji-woo commanded the final campaign with the same steady determination that had carried her through the darkest moments. She took no pleasure in victory. She had seen too much death for that. But she saw the job through, because that was what soldiers did. The Vorn Dominion presented a different challenge. After the Battle of the Crimson Nebula, the Vorn fleet was shattered, but not destroyed. Many of their ships retreated to the Galactic Rim, where they waited in the darkness, uncertain of what came next. The first voice, surprisingly, remained on the destroyed station trapped in an escape pod that Compact forces recovered. President Beat Yuna faced a difficult decision. The Vorn had tried to consume Bilio. Ends of people. By any measure, they were enemies of all sentient life. Many in the Compact demanded their complete destruction. But Yuna remembered what Captain Hana had reported. The Vorn were dying. Their original galaxy was gone. They had done terrible things, but they had done them out of desperation. Not malice. She met with the first voice in a secure facility on Earth's moon. The creature looked smaller than she had expected, thin and fragile, wrapped in robes that no longer pulsed with life. Its mask of bone had cracked in the battle, revealing something that almost looked like a face beneath. "You could have killed me," the first voice said. "Your people would have celebrated. Killing you would have been easy," Yuna replied. "Finding another way, that is hard. But humanity did not survive this long by choosing easy paths." She laid out her proposal. The Vorn would be given a dying star system at the edge of the galaxy, a place with barren worlds, where they could rebuild their civilization. They would be forbidden from expanding or taking hosts without consent. In exchange, they would share their medical technology, which could extend lifespans and cure diseases that had plagued organic species for millennia. "You offer us mercy," the first voice said, surprise evident in its alien voice. "I offer you a chance," Yuna corrected. "What you do with it is your choice. You can rebuild as monsters, and someday we will have to finish what we started here. Or you can rebuild as something better, something that does not need to consume others to survive." The first voice was silent for a long time. "We have been predators for so long," it finally said. "I do not know if my people can become something else." "Neither did we," Yuna said. A long time ago, humans were barely more than animals, killing each other over food and territory. We had to learn to be better. It took thousands of years and more blood than I can imagine. But we did it. Maybe you can too. The Vorn accepted the offer. Not all of them, of course. Some refused to give up their old ways and were hunted down by combat forces. But many enough chose to try the new path. They settled their dying star system and began the long, slow work of becoming something other than monsters. The first voice, as a gesture of peace, shared Vorn medical technology with the compact. Within a year, human scientists had adapted it for use on organic species. Diseases that had killed millions were cured overnight. Human lifespans extended by centuries. The gift did not erase the horror of what the Vorn had tried to do. But it was a beginning. The Galactic Council faced a harsher judgment. The leaders who had signed the Silent Accord were brought before a tribunal representing all species of the compact. Evidence was presented: recordings, documents, testimony from survivors. The accused had nothing to say in their defense. The silence of guilt filled the courtroom. Counselor Kim Do-yeon, who had uncovered the conspiracy, served as lead prosecutor. He stood before the accused with quiet dignity, his voice steady as he recounted their crimes. "You had a choice," he told them. "When the Vorn came offering a deal, you could have refused. You could have fought. You could have warned the species you were supposed to protect. Instead, you calculated the value of our lives and decided we were acceptable losses." He paused, looking at each of them in turn. "For 10,000 years, you called yourselves guardians of the galaxy, protectors of peace, the wise elders who knew better than the younger races. But when the test came, when you had to choose between your comfort and our survival, you failed. You sold us like cattle. The verdict was unanimous. The leaders of the Silent Accord were found guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide. Some were executed. Others were sentenced to imprisonment for the rest of their natural lives, which, for some long-lived species, meant centuries in a cell. A few were pardoned. Not many, but some officials who had secretly opposed the accord, who had tried to warn humanity, who had been silenced by their own governments. They were allowed to live freely, though they spent the rest of their days haunted by what they had failed to prevent. With the old order destroyed, something new had to be built. President Baek Yuna proposed the Assembly of Free Peoples, a governing body where every species, regardless of age or power, had an equal voice. There would be no more elder races and lesser races. No more hierarchies of importance. Just beings working together to build a future worth living. Many expected humanity to claim leadership. They had won the war, after all. They had saved the galaxy when the ancient races could not save themselves. If anyone had earned the right to rule, it was them. Instead, Yuna stood before the founding assembly and declined. "Humanity does not want an empire," she said. "We have seen what empires do, how they corrupt even those who build them with the best intentions. We ask only to be one voice among many, equal partners in a galaxy that belongs to everyone." The assembly was founded with representatives from every species that had fought for freedom. Talic merchants sat beside Moran engineers. Veiled telepaths shared tables with Ilmari philosophers. Humans stood among them, neither above nor below, just different. And valued for their differences, the galaxy began to heal. Fleet. Marshal Park Ji-wo retired from military service on the first anniversary of the Battle of the Crimson Nebula. She had spent 40 years in uniform, fighting wars she never asked for. It was time to rest. She returned to New Bizen. The colony had been rebuilt. New buildings rose where ruins had stood. New farms spread across land that had been scarred by fire. 50,000 people lived there now, families who had come to make a fresh start on a world that had known so much pain. Ji-woo bought a small house on the edge of a rice field. She woke early each morning and watched the sun rise over the mountains. Sometimes she worked in the fields, her hands dirty with good soil. Sometimes she sat on her porch and did nothing at all. She was content. Commander Kang Minho became the first head of the Assembly's peacekeeping force. His ghost wing was reformed as the core of a new defensive fleet, dedicated to protecting all species from threats within and without. He never lost his tactical brilliance, but those who knew him saw a change, a softening around the edges, a willingness to seek peace before reaching for weapons. He visited Ji-woo sometimes. They drank tea and talked about the old days, and they did not talk about the friends they had buried. Counselor Kim Do-yun and Captain Yoon Hana married in a ceremony attended by 5 species. It was held on the Talik homeworld, in the same chamber where Do-yun had first proposed the unbroken compact. Scree, the elderly Talik who had agreed to the alliance, served as officiant. Do-yun became a professor again, teaching history at a university that accepted students from across the galaxy. Hana retired from military service and wrote a memoir that became required reading in schools throughout the assembly. They grew old together, happy in a way they had never expected to be. Vice Admiral Cho Sun-woo continued to serve, eventually becoming Fleet Marshal himself when Ji-woo retired. He led the peacekeeping force with the same skill he had shown in battle, but he never forgot the lessons of the war. Power was a tool, not a right. Strength was meaningless without wisdom to guide it. An ensign, Shin Yoonji, survived. Her ejection seat had carried her clear of the explosion that destroyed the shield generator. A rescue ship had found her drifting in the nebula, unconscious but alive. She spent 3 months recovering from her injuries, burns, broken bones, damage that should have killed her. When she finally walked out of the hospital, she found a galaxy that considered her a hero. She was awarded the highest honors of 4 civilizations. Monuments were built in her image. Songs were written about her sacrifice. She accepted it all with grace and humility, but privately, she thought it was too much. "I just did my job," she told an interviewer once. There were millions of people who did the same thing, millions who did not survive. "I am just glad we are still here." She returned to active duty after her recovery, eventually rising to command her own squadron. She trained young pilots and told them the same thing Seo Taeyan had told her before he died: fear does not matter. What matters is what you do despite the fear. Years passed. The galaxy grew peaceful. Trade flourished. Cultures mixed and merged. Children of 100 species grew up in a universe that their grandparents could not have imagined. And in schools across the galaxy, students learned the story of the unbroken compact. They learned how the old powers had betrayed everyone they were supposed to protect. They learned how the condemned species had refused surrender, how they had fought against impossible odds, how they had won not just survival, but something greater, a future built on equality and trust. Most importantly, they learned the lesson that humanity had taught the stars. When the darkness comes, when the powerful become corrupt, when the strong prey on the weak, when hope seems lost and surrender seems reasonable, there will always be those who refuse to kneel. There will, howl. Eyes be those who stand up and say, "No more." The galaxy had learned this lesson in fire and blood. It would not forget. On New Bizen, Park Ji-woo sat on her porch as the sun set over the rice fields. She was old now, her hair white, her hands wrinkled, but her eyes were still sharp, still full of the fire that had carried her through the darkest days. A child from the neighboring farm ran by, chasing a butterfly. The child's laughter echoed across the fields, pure and free and unafraid. Ji-woo smiled. This was what they had fought for. Not glory, not power. Just this, a child laughing, a sun setting, a future worth living. She closed her eyes and listened to the wind in the rice stalks. And she was at peace. The galaxy was finally safe. Not because there were no more threats, there would always be threats, but because the peoples of the galaxy had learned to face those threats together. Because they had found in each other not enemies or resources, but allies, friends, family. Humanity had come to the stars as strangers. They had become something more, and the galaxy would never forget what happened when the youngest race stood up to the oldest tyranny and said, with one voice that echoed across 1,000,000,000 stars, "We will not break. We will not surrender. We will never stop fighting for tomorrow." This was their legacy. This was their gift to the future. This was how humanity struck back, and this was how they won.